Good evening. Welcome to 5 News with me, Dan Walker.
And me, Simon Viger.
Tonight, more than 70 people, including 7 children, have died in a devastating fire in Johannesburg. It broke out in a 5-storey building in the middle of the city last night. It's one of the deadliest in the country's history.
People are just being evacuated, the death toll is rising, so I'm actually very anxious. I don't know if my daughter is alive.
Also on the programme, thousands of jobs under threat at Wilko after a major bid to save the business failed, but there's still hope some of the stores could be saved.
Turmoil ahead of term. More than 100 schools, nurseries and colleges will be forced to close buildings because the government says they're unsafe.
And in the latest of our People Behind Politics series, we speak to controversial Conservative MP Lee Anderson.
There's some people will never agree with what I've got to say. Even if they do agree with what I say, they will not publicly agree with what I've got to say just because of the political colours.
Plus, Once in a Blue Moon will have the best pictures of the rare lunar event, including some of yours.
From across the UK, this is 5 News.
Hello, we're going to start tonight with a distressing story from South Africa. Have a look at some of these pictures. It's pretty terrifying, isn't it? Over 70 people died in this fire in a multi-storey building in Johannesburg overnight. We now know at least 7 of them were children. Well, fire crews struggled to tackle the blaze. It took them hours, and it emerged later that as many as 200 people were living there. Most of them were homeless. As you can imagine, Amelia Harper's report contains some pretty upsetting details.
In the middle of the night, a devastating fire engulfs a multi-storey building in central Johannesburg. It was a home for people with no home. The rundown 5-storey building was being used by the homeless. People were found trapped inside a security gate. The youngest victim, a 1-year-old. As morning broke, friends and family, desperate for news of loved ones, gathered, held back by officials outside.
I don't get any direction. People are just being evacuated, the death toll is rising, so I'm actually very anxious. I don't know if my daughter is alive.
The fire started in the city of Johannesburg. It gutted this building at around 1:30 a.m., surrounded by many other multi-storey buildings in the Marshalltown area. The cause of the fire is thought to be a candle used for light inside. It spread rapidly because the building was an informal settlement, a common sight in this area of South Africa.
The chances of one being trapped inside that building they are very much higher because of the partitions and all the things which they are using to create those structures.
Johannesburg city officials blame organised criminals for hijacking city buildings.
Some of these buildings, if not most of them, are actually in the hands of those cartels who collect rental from our people. And that makes a point that some of these people who are in these buildings can afford to pay.
Injured residents continue to be treated for now, but the long-term impacts, both physically and mentally, will continue for some time to come. And what also remains alongside a blackened, smoking building are questions about how this devastating fire happened. Amelia Harper, 5 News.
Some UK news now. Jobs at the high street chain Wilko have started to go. Administrators overseeing the collapse of the homeware retailer say 269 support centre staff have been made redundant.
Their last day will be Monday. There is hope some of those jobs could still be saved, as Catherine Jones can tell us.
A fixture on 400 high streets, almost as common as Woolworths was in its time. The Wilko chain seemed to have a secure market position with its sell-everything stores. But the retailer has been plagued with problems and 3 weeks ago went into administration. Now, talks with the only bidder who had promised to keep the firm intact have collapsed.
They were the go-to place as a discounter where you could get a brilliant range at great prices on your high street. And that model that they had just didn't change over time. They didn't evolve that model sufficiently at the point where competition like The Range, B&M Bargains, Home Bargains, Poundland started to eat away at them gradually, and they just weren't able to change their proposition over that period.
The jobs under threat right now are the 1,400 staff who work at Wilko's distribution warehouses and the company's HQ. According to the GMB union, a third will be made redundant immediately. For 269 workers, Monday will be their last day. There are also more than 11,000 store and online staff. Their future is uncertain, depending on whether a viable buyer for the retailer can be found and how many stores they want to keep open. The administrators are reportedly still talking with the owner of HMV, who is potentially interested in taking over Wilko's brand, with perhaps 200 stores remaining open. But many of Wilko's customers have come to rely on getting so much in one place.
Yeah, Christmas stuff, stocking fillers, so yes, it's a big loss.
I'm gutted. I am too. It's been a life-old staple, been around for ages.
Yeah, I just said to the guys in there, I wish them all the best of luck.
All the brand names that we know that people love over the years and grew up with, they're shutting down. What do you want us to do? What are you going to replace? Not everything can go online.
Last week, the Aldi chain invited Wilko's staff to apply for new jobs being advertised at its stores as it expands nationwide. But even if staff can find work elsewhere and a saviour can be found for parts of the business, it seems likely Wilko's woes will lead to more empty, shuttered stores on UK high streets.
Well, Catherine is outside a Wilko store in East London right now. Catherine, it's been very popular on the high street, so how has it come to this?
Well, you say popular, but actually Wilko has been in steady decline for the last 4 years or so, and a number of factors contribute to that. Here's one of them. I mentioned Woolworths at the top of my report. Well, actually, Wilko took over many of the high street, large, expensive to lease locations that Woolworths used to have. And if what you're renting is expensive and what you're selling is cheap, the numbers, the sums, just start to not add up. There's also been criticism of the leadership and the management. Until it went into administration, Wilko was still owned by the family of the founder, J.K. Wilkinson. And Wilko has recently paid dividends of a total of £3 million to the owners, even though they had just posted a loss for that year. What now? Well, the GMB union represents many of the workers, and they say while we remain hopeful a bid from a viable buyer can be found, we cannot guarantee that and must therefore continue to prepare for the worst.
OK, Catherine, thank you very much for that update. We'd love to know how you feel about this tonight. Will you perhaps be missing Wilko? We'd love to know what the Five Phone's going to say, Simon.
Tell us on the Five Phone. We'll read out the comments later on. Are you worried about the future of our high streets with Wilko now under threat? Are you one of those losing a job, but maybe you've got memories of shopping there as a kid? Get in touch, WhatsApp us on the Five Phone. There's the number, 07555 500 501. That's the number, and we'll read out some of the messages later on. You can also contact us on X, formerly known as Twitter, also on Facebook and Instagram, and we'll share some of the messages later on. Now, in other headlines, it's been confirmed a South Wales police officer is facing a criminal investigation for dangerous driving. It follows the deaths of teenagers Harvey Evans and Kyrie Sullivan in Cardiff in May. They were riding an e-bike and were being followed by a police van shortly before they crashed. Police looking for the missing poet Gboyega Odebanju have found a body. The 27-year-old was last seen at a music festival in Northamptonshire in the early hours of Saturday. Detectives do not believe there are any suspicious circumstances. And the family of Police Sergeant Graham Saville have paid their tribute. He died after being hit by a train as he tried to save a distressed man on the tracks near Newark in Nottinghamshire. His widow described him as a wonderful man. She said his desire to help others led him to making the ultimate sacrifice.
Let's bring you some more of the day's main news and some unsettling news for parents this afternoon. You may well be gearing up for the start of the new term next week, but the government is ordering over 100 schools, nurseries and colleges, this is in England, to keep some buildings closed.
It's because of safety concerns about a type of concrete. Natalia Holkera joins us in the studio with more on this. And Natalia, this is very late, and it really couldn't come at a worse time for schools, could it?
That's right. Most schools are due to start back on Monday or Tuesday next week, so this is very last minute. Now, it comes after the Education Secretary, Gillian Keegan, said that new evidence had come out about this type of material called RAAC, which is a type of lightweight concrete. Now, it's been found to be prone to collapsing. Now, this material was used quite widely during the 1950s and mid-90s.
You mentioned over 100 in the introduction, so break those numbers down for us. What are we looking at?
Well, first, I want to make it clear that it is not entire schools that will be closing, but some of the buildings within the schools. That's not to say that it won't cause some major disruption. Now, the Department of Education has identified 572 schools where RAAC could be present and 156 where it is confirmed. 52 of those had already taken action, but that leaves more than 100 being contacted today. Unions, of course, want urgent plans to fix the buildings.
What we need to have is as much information as quickly as possible. We need the government to get teams of people out into those schools so we can do the proper analysis, get plans in place and work as quickly as possible so we can open schools and find alternative venues and classrooms for those places where we need to do.
It's such a late call, isn't it? What happens next week?
Well, schools that have been contacted will have to relocate some of the children to other teaching spaces. Now, this could look like temporary classrooms, or it could even be other schools. Now, parents where the schools have been contacted should receive notice within the next few days. But the start of term may look very different for some.
Natalia, thanks very much for that update.
Now, here's a question for you. Do you like Marmite?
You sum up who you are in a sentence. Well, that's a good question. Marmite.
That is Lee Anderson, a Tory MP for Ashfield and also Deputy Chair of the party. He's quite well known, isn't he, for speaking his mind. I spent the day with him earlier this week as part of our People Behind Politics series, and you can see the full interview just after 5:30.
Plenty more of the day's news too, including a very welcome development for people living with long COVID.
I just feel like my brain isn't working properly. I know what I want to say, and what comes out is bleh.
Of course, that's our very own Ruth, who's now recovering from long COVID. She has that special report on what could be a big breakthrough for her and others like her.
And also Claire has got the forecast.
Hello there, good evening. Now, with a change of month comes a change of weather. Yes, it's warming up, drying up with sunny spells, not only into the weekend, but through next week as well, as the schools reopen. I'll see you later.
That's great. Summer's coming back. We will see you after the break.
Welcome back to 5 News. We've had a bit of a mini reshuffle, haven't we, at the top of government today?
A small one. So what's the new lineup of the Cabinet? Well, let's go straight to our political reporter, Serena Barker-Singh, who's in Westminster. Serena, let's talk about Grant Shapps. First of all, he's got another new job.
Yes, it's a mini shuffle, but for anyone who was hoping for big changes, they'll be disappointed. It's more of a micro shuffle, tweaks to the top team. As you say, Grant Shapps today got the big role. He got Defence Secretary, and he's known for having a varied portfolio. It's his 5th cabinet position in just 12 months, and because of that, there's been some grumblings from the backbenchers. People worried that there is no obvious defence experience there. And the real concern with that is whether he'll push for increased defence spending. Now, this was something very important to Ben Wallace, who was in the position before him, and in his resignation letter today, he's mentioned that. He said, "We must not return to the days where defence was viewed as a discretionary spend by government and where savings were achieved by hollowing out." Now, what Grant Shapps has done today is pledged his continued support for Ukraine. He was in Kyiv last week. But Number 10 see his real asset as being a communicator. He's often on the airwaves when it's a tricky time for the government, and many people here in Westminster think that's the real reason he landed this big role.
OK, Serena, so what does that mean for his old position as Energy Secretary?
So that's been filled by a junior minister, Claire Cortino. Now she came from the Department of Education, and she's the first 2019er who has got a cabinet role. She was a former special advisor for Rishi Sunak, and she was also in the Treasury whilst the Prime Minister was Chancellor. So it's clear these two positions today are rewarding loyalty above everything else, and with all eyes firmly on the next election.
Serena, thanks very much indeed.
One other piece of news today. The Dire Straits guitarist Jack Sonni has died at the age of 68.
With the Sultans, with the Sultans of Swing.
His bandmates announced his death in a post online saying simply, "Rest in peace."
He had recently withdrawn from some gigs because of health issues. He was known as the other guitarist alongside Mark Knopfler during the band's heyday in the late 1970s and 80s. In other news, starting with some breaking news, actually, in the last hour it's been confirmed that both junior and senior doctors in England are going to strike together for the very first time. The British Medical Association announced the plans after junior doctors voted to continue strike action. Fresh dates have been announced over the next 2 months, with both groups providing just minimal cover for 3 days in October. The government's announced plans to crack down on rogue police officers. Under the proposals, officers found guilty of gross misconduct could be fired automatically. Ministers say it's to help rebuild trust, but the Police Federation says it signals a return to kangaroo courts. And police have released this CCTV footage of a burglar, Harry Rose, who, mid-break-in at a hotel near Gatwick, poured himself a glass of beer. This happened back in February. He pleaded guilty to burglary and shoplifting earlier this month. He was recently sentenced to 8 weeks in jail.
Now, we've been talking about long COVID for almost as long as we've been talking about COVID, but people suffering symptoms of the virus weeks, months and sometimes years on can still find it hard to get that condition officially recognised.
Well, doctors have now found some more clues which could be getting closer to the answer. They say blood clots may be causing one of the most common symptoms of long COVID, which is brain fog.
Our very own Ruth Liptrot experienced it when she had long COVID, and she reports now on those findings.
Brain fog. It's probably the symptom that most people associate with long COVID, but let me tell you, brain fog doesn't go anywhere near what it is. Kate's had it since December 2020.
It's like your brain is just stuffed full of cotton wool and it stopped working, and everything hurts. Having a conversation hurts. So I can't find words, I can't remember things. So my words sometimes come out in a muddle, you know, the wrong way round, or the wrong words come out and my family are saying, what are you talking about? And yeah, I feel stupid.
Calling it brain fog is sort of like describing a hurricane as a mild breeze. Previous research has shown that it ages the brain by around 10 years, and it was absolutely one of my worst symptoms. This is me back in 2021.
I just feel like my brain isn't working properly. I know what I want to say, and what comes out is bleh.
Until now, though, we haven't really known what causes it, but this latest research by the University of Oxford now gives us an idea. Scientists found clues or markers in the blood that were proof of blood clots in those with brain fog.
We know that those markers signals that there are blood clots happening somewhere in the body, and therefore we believe that those findings suggest and support the hypothesis that cognitive problems after COVID-19 is caused by blood clots. Oftentimes, patients who experience those symptoms found that they were undermined by some clinicians and some doctors, and hopefully these findings will help sort of show that there is a biological explanation.
And that's what's so positive about this, because so many people with long COVID still aren't being believed.
It's something else that'll help us get a diagnosis and be taken a bit more seriously.
Yeah, there's just that bit of validation, isn't it, for people who still aren't being believed?
Exactly, and it offers treatments, surely. You know, if you can find something wrong, then they can do something to help.
For Kate, working on her pottery is therapeutic. As she shapes the clay, she's beginning to shape her recovery. Hopefully this new research can make things even clearer. Ruth Liptrot, 5 News.
And thanks to Kate for talking to Ruth about that as well. We are here until around about 6 o'clock for you tonight. Plenty more to come, including this.
What sort of political conversation do you have with your sons?
Harry was a Labour Party member, so he was very upset when they joined the Tory party. In fact, he cried.
The latest in our People Behind Politics series, that's the Tory Deputy Chair, Lee Anderson. Find out what made an ex-miner become a Conservative MP. And...
What's up, Internet? I'm north of the border, eh? At the TED conference, it's not short for Theodore.
Amazing. That is not Tom Cruise. We'll hear about some of the other threats posed by artificial intelligence, or AI.
Is that really you, Simon?
Yes.
I think so. I'll investigate. Quick look at the weather now. We'll see you in a second.
The power of nature meets the power of science. Weather on Channel 5, sponsored by Sterimar Breathe Easy Daily Nasal Spray.
Over the next 24 hours, we do have some showery rain around and poor visibility with low cloud. Away from central and northern areas of Scotland, some sunshine here. Here's this waving weather front continues to bring cloud, rain and low cloud, although some heavy showery rain likely with the odd rumble of thunder across the far southeast. It will clear. A cold night across central and northern areas of Scotland, but under the cloud, temperatures holding up. But it will be a damp start to the day, anywhere from southern Scotland, northern England, northern parts of Northern Ireland down towards East Anglia. Showers will develop as the sun comes out across central and southern parts of England and Wales, as showery rain continues across the far southeast. Fine and dry anywhere from the central belt northwards, and always more clouds for Northern Ireland. Where you catch the sunshine, not too bad at all. Temperatures slowly moving into the 20s, but feeling cool under the cloud. Not the case on Saturday. Pretty much most places seeing bright weather, if not sunshine, and temperatures on the up, although a residual shower can't be ruled out across the far southeast. Temperatures warm yet again on Sunday with sunny spells away from the far north and northwest of Scotland. Always more cloud here with a little rain. And here's your outlook through next week.
The power of nature meets the power of science. Weather on Channel 5, sponsored by Sterimar Breathe Easy Daily Nasal Spray.
The Holiday Weather Report on Channel 5, sponsored by EasyJet Holidays.
If you are heading to the Mediterranean over the next few days, you need to cater for some very warm sunshine. Breezy down towards the Canaries. A few showers lurking out there, but most places are dry. And into the weekend, it looks like this. Yes, sunny spells and temperatures generally in the high 20s, if not low 30s.
The Holiday Weather Report on Channel 5, sponsored by EasyJet Holidays.
Thanks for being with us on 5 News tonight. The time is fast approaching 5:30, and here are the top 5 things you need to know. More than 70 people have died after a fire at a multi-storey building in Johannesburg in South Africa. A number of children are amongst the dead. It's thought many of those living in the building were homeless. There has been a mini or a micro cabinet reshuffle today. Grant Shapps is the new Defence Secretary. He was the energy boss. That was appointed this morning after the resignation of Ben Wallace. More than 100 schools in England are being told to close some of their buildings immediately after ministers announced they might be dangerous. This is because concrete used to build them is now deemed dangerous. This man, Lawrence Churcher, who was 102, was laid to rest today with a full Royal Navy Guard of Honour. Mr Churcher was the last known veteran of Dunkirk. He later went on to serve in the Mediterranean and on D-Day. We will remember them. And also, one of our top stories today, the first job losses at Wilko will begin in the coming days. After one proposed deal to buy the chain collapsed earlier, 12,500 jobs in total are at risk. And that, Simon, has been the subject, hasn't it, today, of our FIFO, what people think about what's going on at Wilko.
Yeah, lots of great messages again today. Let's start with Anonymous in Burton-on-Trent. I worked for Wilko's for 34 years. I'm devastated, even though I'm retired. I love going to work for that company. Michael in Swansea, it's the same old story. People moan when the shops close down. It's too late then. To keep shops open, people need to use them or lose them. That is a very good point. Jane in Norwich, as a former Wilko's employee, I'll certainly miss it if it closes. I still pop in there every so often to say hello to my former colleagues. Janet in Kent, I hope Wilko can be saved. They are my go-to for all household cleaning products. Shell in Chelmsford, Wilko has the best for toiletries, duvet covers, cushions, just about everything. It's very sad what's happening to our high streets. Ian in Darwin, always got my decorating stuff, paintbrushes, etc. from Wilko for years, plus kitchen and bathroom essentials. It will be sadly missed. Fingers that someone takes it over. And Paul in Bathgate, the high street isn't just for shopping. It's where friends and family meet. More needs to be done to keep it viable, like parking places where you don't pay the earth and good transport links. Thanks very much for your messages.
Great to hear from you tonight, and it's time now for the second of our People Behind Politics series. You might remember a few weeks ago we spent the day with Labour's Deputy Leader Angela Rayner. Well, now we turn our attention to the Conservatives' Deputy Chair Lee Anderson. He is a divisive figure and is responsible for quite a few controversial comments. You might remember just a few weeks ago he said asylum seekers could F off back to France if they didn't want to stay on a barge. Well, we talked about that and a lot more this week when we went to his constituency in Nottinghamshire. Here we are. So this is your patch?
It is. This is the middle of Sutton in Ashfield. It's called the Central and New Cross area, actually. It is, I want to be honest, probably the most deprived area of my constituency.
Why are you an MP?
By accident, really. I never thought I'd become an MP. I worked, over 10 years down the pits. I did about 10 years working for the local Citizens Advice Bureau, and that's when I really got a flavour for, got my social conscience kicked in.
If you don't mind me saying, it's a classic Labour education, isn't it? So how have you ended up a Tory MP?
I think what I said previously about, I went to work for a Labour MP in 2012, I think it was, which was Gloria. And I was a Labour Party member. I paid my subs. I never campaigned. I never got involved. I just thought, with being a union man, working in the pits, that's what you do. Anybody with a blue rosette would have walked through this street 15, 20 years ago. They probably got chased out of town.
Are we down here?
Yeah. They got chased out of town, but now I can walk through here and be accepted, which the Westminster bubble doesn't get that. I was in trouble a few weeks back for saying something.
Is this the F off to France?
Yeah, it was, yeah. And that comment, I mean, people were saying, oh, he's done this interview. I didn't do an interview. I was walking like this past a reporter. And literally it was a 15-second conversation.
I mean, you have been asked to apologise for that, and you've stood by
well,
that.
I'm not apologising.
And the Tory party stood by you as well.
Well, listen, somebody said to me, well, you use the F word. And I say, well, yeah, it was born out of frustration. I won't use it again. But, sometimes when you get a little bit angry, real people swear. 99% of the population swear. Let's not pretend they don't. But I'm not apologising because people like you and the mainstream media would be relentless if I apologised.
But you say that, but I think sorry is quite a powerful word, isn't it? Because the strength in what you said is if you were to tell somebody on the other side of the street here to F off back to France and there was a policeman round here, you could actually be in
Yeah, but I wouldn't say to people around here, F off back to France. I mean, what I said was, if these illegal migrants do not like our luxury four-star accommodation, which, by the way, is much better than all the houses you've just passed on Artem Street, Dan, if they're not happy with that, they can go back to France.
Oh, your words carry weight, don't they? And
I would hope so.
But do you think that at a time when what we say is rightly scrutinised, that's the right sort of thing to come out of the mouth of a
if people like me,
chair of the Tory party?
People like me start clamming up and stop saying what the majority of people in this country are thinking, then we've had it.
Do you think you are sometimes stirring the pot and accelerating that division by some of the things that you say?
Such as what I said that.
About the F off back to France.
Yeah.
About you were laughing about 30p Lee. What are you saying about food banks and people not budgeting properly?
Well, that's true. When I said this in Parliament, there's going, Lee Anderson says you can feed a family of 5 for 30p a day. No, it's nonsense. What we're trying to do is show that if you can cook from scratch, if you can batch cook, if you can buy the right ingredients, if you can learn how to cook, you can actually make meals, batch cook meals, a lot cheaper than going to the local takeaways or buying crap food or buying ready meals. That was my point.
Is this the giant sundial you were talking about?
Yeah, this is the law. I think when the Labour Council had this bill 20, 25 years ago, they billed this as the largest outdoor sundial in Europe. Now, I can't think of any indoor sundials.
It is a big one.
It's a big one. I believe it's pointing the wrong way. But, I mean, what a waste of money.
So, Where are we heading now, Lee?
This is Low Street, so this leads into the shopping centre. Where's the boss? Come on, boss.
Hey, you're
right. Yeah, all right, Steve, you all right?
Hi,
We've got
Steve, Dan. Very nice to meet you.
Dan.
Do you mind if I put you on the spot?
Go on.
Did you vote in the last election?
Yeah.
Did you vote Tory?
Yeah.
Are you decided what you're going to do next time?
No, I've always been a floating voter.
And what happens between now and the next election will decide where your vote goes?
Yeah, absolutely, and it'll all be down to what they will do for us as a small business, and I will have to look at that and think, well, which is the best party that is offering.
What about your MP though, Steve?
It's a difficult one because
awkward, isn't
it? I know you've been
fine.
I know you've been here. I know you've supported us, and I know you support a lot of small business, and I get that. But we've got to look at what the totality of the government will do, and whether the next government will support us as a small business, because that's crucial to us.
See you later on.
See you, Steve.
Cheers, Steve. How do you get on with Rishi Sunak?
I get on really well with Rishi. He gave me this job, deputy chairman of the party. So.
Are you confident in him as a leader, as a prime minister? What are some of his qualities?
Well, he's gave us his 5 pledges, and he's got to deliver on them. We shouldn't overpromise and underdeliver.
Does it matter if you disagree?
No,
with
I think it's good that we disagree. No,
if you were to disagree with him, say for example on net zero, how do you have that conversation? How does that work?
Well, it works quite easy. That's the good thing about politics, and especially our party, is that it is a broad church. You can disagree on stuff and have different ideas and different beliefs.
How do you feel about some of those climate promises about reducing the number of diesel cars and things like that?
Everybody wants to see net zero, of course we do. But when you've got China and India and Russia and the US pumping out all sorts of stuff into the atmosphere, and we're, responsible for what, 1% of the emissions on the planet. If this island sunk tomorrow into the sea, it wouldn't make a blind bit of difference to the emissions in this world.
And do you care what people think about you?
Not really, no. No, I care
so it doesn't hurt you. It doesn't. I'm assuming you get quite a bit of abuse.
I've got death threats being investigated now.
So does your mum sometimes, when she does read stuff like that, she worries about you, does she?
Yeah.
I suppose any mum would.
She would, yeah. She says, we're going this way. Yeah, she does. And
does she tell you to stop it?
She always says, I don't know why I do this bloody job. You don't get no thanks for it.
Does your mum still tell you off if she thinks you've stepped over the line?
Well, she was there when I made the FF comment. She was actually stood at the side on me.
What does she think?
Well, she sort of agreed with what I said. The sentiment of it, should I say. And, well, she didn't shout at me.
So this is one of your regular halls, is it?
Yes, and we've got Gina in, who runs the place. Well, you're right,
Gina, okay.
Gina, this is the world-famous Gina.
Well, this is Dan Walker, world-famous Dan Walker.
I'll have 2 fry-ups then, please.
Is that all right, Gina?
That's fine.
Why we tried to do this series on 5 News is because we're trying to work out what politics means to people. And to you, it seems that your relationship with politics is what happens to this place and your relationship with the local council.
Everything's around politics. Yeah. I know it sounds awful, but it is. If there's a change in politics, it changes it for everybody.
Well, there you go. Being as well. Can I ask you about ambitions? Where do you want to be 5, 10 years down the line? Still an MP?
I want to be sat here, having a cup of tea and a Viennese wheel with my family and reflecting on my achievements over the past 10 years. I think seriously, one more term, if I'm fortunate enough to be elected, will do me. I want to go back to being a local councillor.
So you don't have ambitions
not at all.
To be like a frontline politician, as in one of the big jobs in Parliament?
No.
Who do you look up to in politics?
That's a good question. Has it got to be a political figure?
Well, who are you thinking of?
My dad. Yeah, my dad is one of those. I mean, people think that I'm a bit blunt sometimes, and
is your dad even blunter?
Yeah, he's worse.
What about outside of politics? What do you do in your spare time? Who do you look up to? Who do you admire? Maybe the work they're doing or the message they're giving?
Oh, Steve Cooper, manager at Nottingham Forest. I go to the forest with my 2 sons. Give me that bit of me time with my 2 boys every couple of weeks.
What sort of political conversation do you have with your sons?
Well, my oldest Charlie, he's not too fussed on politics. Harry was a Labour Party member. He was bit of a Corbynite. So he was very upset when I joined the Tory party. In fact, he cried and he rung up. He was very upset. He was angry with me. I get it. I mean, I'd have probably been a little bit angry if it had been me, but it's fine now.
What do you think is going to happen at the next election, Lee?
It's a tough one because...
If you look at the polls, it doesn't look good.
Yeah, I don't believe the polls. What we're finding out on the doorstep is, yes, people are grumpy with us. People want us to succeed, especially the first-time Tory voters, but there's no love for Starmer at all. When I say to people, is it Rishi or Starmer, which one do you say Rishi?
Can you sum up who you are in a sentence?
Oh, that's a good question. Marmite.
That's a word.
That'll do.
And do you mind that?
Not really. You know, there's some people will never agree with what I've got to say. Even if they do agree with what I say, they will not publicly agree with what I've got to say just because of the political colours I wear. And I know that because I've been in both parties.
Really appreciate your time today. It's been fascinating to spend the morning with you.
Yeah.
I know you've got a busy afternoon, so I'll let you take a Viennese whirl to get on.
Just the one?
Yeah, go on. You can have all three if you want. Thank you very much.
Cheers, Dan.
Thanks, Lee.
That's the second in our People Behind the Politics series, and there are lots more lined up. The whole point about democracy, of course, is you speak to people you agree with and you speak to people you don't agree with.
Yeah,
really
we had Angela Rayner on last month, didn't we? And I think we've already got a few other MPs and politicians signed up to talk to us and spend 10 minutes, because you very rarely hear an interview of that length, do you?
Yeah.
You get to see what makes them tick. Ed Davey from the Liberal Democrats, Mark Drakeford as well, and also Hamza Youssef, the leader of the SNP as well, all in the next few weeks and months.
And we'll find out what buns or cakes they like to,
yes, exactly.
to eat as well. Right, we're going to take a short break now. In a few minutes.
What you see is not real. Well, at least in contemporary terms, it is not. What if I were to tell you that I am not even a human being?
No, that is not Morgan Freeman either. Just how scary can AI get?
What's happening here at downtown Hollywood? It's being felt thousands of miles away in Venice.
We will explain all. See you after the break.
Welcome back. You're watching 5 News. If this is your first time in the programme, we do this around the world in 3 stories around about now. We're going to go to Turin in northern Italy first, where an investigation has been launched after 5 rail workers were killed last night when they were hit by a train as they were repairing the line. Now, it's reported that train was travelling at around 100 miles an hour, far too fast, according to the Rail Workers Union. Our next stop is Florida, and we've been reporting on Storm Idalia, which hit the state yesterday. The worst of the weather is now over. Officials reckon more than 225,000 people are still without power, and that number's even higher in the neighbouring state of Georgia. And finally, a bit further north to Toronto, where a lorry had a bit of a fumble, or should that be bumble, after 5 million bees fell off the truck. Police were telling drivers to keep their windows closed as most of the escaped bees were recovered after local keepers were called in for a sting operation. And I'd like to formally apologise for all the bee-based puns.
Now, artificial intelligence, or AI, does it inspire you, confuse you, scare you maybe? Perhaps all of the above? Well, a group of MPs wants the government to do more to look at both the benefits and the threats of the technology.
Yeah, they say addressing the issues with AI would improve public confidence and stop people getting spooked. Peter Lane has been finding out more.
Adam Bell, I want to see inside a cell. Shut up, Doug.
There's comedy use of AI, like this fake rap from a fake Donald Trump. There's practical use, like cameras to detect which drivers are on their phones. And there's AI recently winning a drone flying race by judging the route better than humans. With so much to consider, a new parliamentary report calls on the government to address the risks and reassure the public. The report lists 12 challenges, including employment, because AI can and will replace some jobs, privacy, the use of facial recognition and our personal data, and existential threat, how public well-being and national security must be protected.
This is a technology that's developing explosively, and so it's inevitable that some things that AI can do currently is not regulated. But what our call is today to the government is to speed up its legislative response to make sure that it's not outpaced by the technology.
The pain is really bad.
For some, this is all about progress. GP Ben showing me how his patients fill in a chat form so that AI can flag up who needs to be seen more urgently.
So it can deal with spelling mistakes, it can deal with, regional variation and how you describe your symptoms. I feel that we're really getting to the point now where the technology is really helping and can bring real benefits. Someone who's worked in the area for so long, it's very satisfying, particularly when I'm using it in my own practice and I'm seeing the benefits to my patients and also to me and the rest of my staff.
What's up, Internet?
Clearly, the mission we have to make possible is finding a way to live with and regulate AI. Right now, that means spotting the fake Tom Cruise. In the future, who knows where we're going. Peter Lane, 5 News.
It really does freak me out. So initially, I can't tell the difference. Then if you stare at the eyes, I think there's something there, isn't there? It is weird, though.
It is scary.
Yeah, one group you might say is spooked, or at least very worried by AI, are Hollywood writers. They've been on strike for more than 3 months over how artificial intelligence is being used to make films.
Yes, and that strike is having a big impact at the Venice Film Festival, which is happening right now. Let's cross to Venice and speak to Alina Trapattoni, who's there for us. Alina, it hasn't been quite as glitzy as usual, although it does look quite glitzy there.
Well, no, absolutely. It's been a very sort of unique festival so far. It launched last night, obviously. I would even go as far as saying it's quite particular in terms of atmosphere, because what's missing for the first time ever, really, are those big Hollywood mega productions, the big A-lister movie stars. There are a few, but there is a real dearth of this presence here this year so far. And of course, that's because, Venice is the world's oldest festival. It is the most glamorous by all accounts, by many accounts. But what's missing this year is, this Hollywood presence because of the actors and the union strike. And it must be said that the European chapters of the Writers' Guilds and the Actors' Unions are very much staunchly defending this strike. So that's the situation on the ground at the moment.
We know that some talents will not be able to attend the festival, will not be on our red carpet, but there are only 4 films out of all the American films that will be in Venice.
So that's the artistic director we've just heard there from the Venice Film Festival. And normally, Alina, we have a bit of controversy at these events, and this year is no different.
This year's no different, and I think the theme of this festival is very much controversy, much controversy. You've really hit the nail on the head using that word, because, of course, we have the likes of Woody Allen and Roman Polanski premiering their films here. And it must be said, I think we all know of Woody Allen's legal troubles. They've been on the headlines in past years. And, of course, Roman Polanski is premiering his brand new film, The Palace, despite, and I say despite because this is what people are telling me here on the ground, and that's despite his own legal woes, tied to very strong accusations. And of course, we must say that, both men have very clearly said that they've denied all wrongdoing in any of these accusations. And the festival itself is very much defending its own choices in this matter, saying that in these cases you have to, however, separate the man out from the art, and that the festival itself is no judge of legal proceedings. And of course, above all, the festival says that, neither man has been ever, found guilty of any wrongdoing.
Alina Trapattoni, really good to talk to you. Enjoy the festival. Thank you.
Now, you've heard the phrase once in a blue moon. Well, even rarer than that is once in a blue supermoon.
Yes, that's what lit up the skies last night. Have a look at these fabulous pictures. These are from around the world. This one is Greece. Just to explain, we should say this, shouldn't we? A blue moon is nothing to do with the colour. It actually means it's the second full moon in a month. And then a super blue moon is also when it's especially close to the Earth, so it looks bigger and brighter, a bit like that.
Fantastic images there. Earlier today, we asked for your moon pictures and social media and the Five phone. We've got here Sarah Jane in Greenhithe in Kent. Thank you, Sarah. Some incredible detail on that one.
This is coming from Jenny Bond in Matlock in Derbyshire. That's very spooky, isn't it? A lovely dramatic landscape. Jenny, thank you very much for sending that in.
Jamie Raven, thank you, Jamie. He was lucky enough to be on the Aegean Sea last night. Look at that. I know we said it's not about colour, but that's pretty blue, isn't it?
He snuck himself in the picture as well. One more. This is Megan Pugh. This is in Luton. Look at the detail on the moon's surface. Normally, you can't take a good one with a phone, but that is a beauty. Thank you for all your pictures. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.